Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So today I'm going to work on a larger size of Magweb, who is one of the main characters from The Inspectors. So this is a photocopy I had blown up. So the original, I went up 25%. So it's maxing out my paper, as you can see here. And the reason I did this was I wanted to detail her more for the novel, because I use character studies as art in the novel. And these character studies help me when I'm drawing the chapter headers, which I'm also doing. So you'll probably see the chapter 2 header coming up in the next couple days. So basically what I wanted to improve on this second version is I want to give the fabrics of the clothing she's wearing more detail. And on the first one, I really left it open, as you can see. And so what I'm doing is I have a light pad and I'm tracing my own drawing. And I'll try to incorporate greater detail all along the way as I'm going, trying to improve and add more depth to the overall drawing so that she looks the way I want her to look, to the best of my ability. So doing the smaller drawing helps me decide if this is the way I want her to look, or did I need to change anything. And I was pretty happy with it. It looks all right. So I'm fine with most of how she turned out. I think she's going to be fine. So I'll show you where the departure is going to come in. I'm going to go ahead. I want the top of her to be referencing as lighter than her actual uniform, because in a color version of this would likely be white or similar. And the body of her cadet uniform would be a navy blue, because in America, we tend to go in that direction. And right now, Space Force is an American group. I'm not sure it'll stay that way in the future. I kind of expect that in the future, if we don't totally destroy ourselves, I think that we will go toward worldwide groups versus national groups. I think we have to get away from nationalization. I think it's unhealthy for almost all reasons. It tends to make people territorial and militant and violent. And if we're going to survive as a species, we have to do better than that. So at the moment of this creation, I want her to reflect what I understand is the current situation. I'm an American. I write from the American slant, even though I try to neutralize a lot of the sort of local current political crap that goes on. I try to not reflect that in my novels. I try to reflect a future that I hope will come into existence. And this story is part of that. And so I kind of anticipate that nationalism will decline in importance. Of course, this is at odds with a lot of the sort of people who really want nationalism to become stronger. But I'm not one of them. So what I'm doing is I'm doing not really straight lines, because clearly these aren't straight, but they're kind of straight to her body. That's what I'm trying to use to depict the much darker color of, say, her sleeve here, because that's what I'm drawing. And I notice I'm a little wobbly today. It's actually midday for me, and as the day progresses, the body responds differently at different points during the day. And so it becomes, for me, that shows up in that I need to intentionally relax the muscles in my hand and arm, etc., as the day goes on. So I become less relaxed over time during any given day. So when you draw, if you're like me, you'll have times of the day that work better for your body. And the same thing goes for writing, because I do a lot of writing that not so much the body, but the brain is very different. If you start off your day with lots of business stuff that you have to do, or chores and things like that, you may not be in a creative mindset right after that, and you may have to sort of reset your brain in order to write. And I do that by taking a nap. I'll take naps at times. So what I did was I was using the 1. Now I've switched to the 3/0, and I'm going to go down in size in order to indicate shadows or depth, those kind of things. And so I know that the inside of her arm is curving and going away from me, therefore it has depth. I know that there is some wrinkling that happens with clothing, and so I indicated those wrinkles here with the wobbles, and as I'm coming back in with my much finer pen, I can indicate fabric folds, which I did in the original drawing, so they're showing up underneath here, giving me hints where I want to be. And then the outside also curves away. So I'm going along the outer edge with its own cross-hatching of the fabric. And so I get, I'll turn the light on here so you can see it. I'll get a little bit more definition. Now, I know that this top is going to overlay the cadet uniform. So this edge, along the edge of the top, I can add a shadow to kind of over-enhance that separation to give it a little bit more detail. Now I had sort of like buttons on here for her, which I'm just looking to add detail so that it's not just a tunic top, which in reality it probably would be just a tunic top, probably wouldn't have buttons and things like that. But it's my drawing and I can do what I want to, and I'm going to. So again, you can see I'm following the little bobbles that I intentionally drew. Now, something that you've probably noticed if you've followed me and watched a few of my little videos is that I have some notable characteristics of OCD, or obsessive compulsive behavior. And it shows up as being detail-oriented and clean, in the sense that I'm probably not the artist that is going to put a canvas on the wall and take a bucket of paint and throw it at the canvas. The OCD in me shows up as controlling things. I try to control things a lot, and I depart from that because I'm pushing myself to get past what could be a limitation. And so you may see other things that I do here that are not quite so OCD, but this is pretty OCD. And I'm leaving little bobbles indicating that her fabric of her tunic top is not laying super smoothly. She has bumps. She's female. And fabric has its own way of being in the world. And I like fabric. I did a lot of sewing, made costumes, things like that, different parts of my life. So I respect it, and I want to show the fabric, which is really why I'm doing this drawing, because I want there to be more detail in my picture, so that she's interesting, more interesting than just with a plain top like I did in the first drawing. So it's pretty common for me to redo what I'm doing. So my first effort at something typically isn't my last, as you probably noticed. And I accept that I'm going to have sort of a test run at something and see what I like or don't like about it. And this takes me off the hook for trying to get things perfect the first time, which is where I was as a younger artist, was wanting to be perfect from the very beginning of whatever I thought perfection was. And as I'm older now, I no longer want or need that. So I'm quite okay with using 2 or 3 boards to get an effect that I want, improve what I'm doing, understand it better. The more times you draw something, the better you're going to understand what you're drawing. Because each drawing has its own shapes, its own lessons. And in this case, what I learned from doing this for the Bug Mage was that the more I drew the characters, the more realized the visuals of the characters became for me. They came to life more fully. And in this case, she's a teenager, and her age becomes a little bit ambiguous in the story because she goes through a torpor hibernator more than once. And the torpor hibernator sort of freezes the body. It's like a cryogenic chamber of some kind. And its effect on children or still maturing humans is not very well known. So Magweb and Polly kind of inadvertently become test subjects. And so her age in this drawing is sort of around 15 or 16, depending on how you measure time, when time becomes frozen. And your body still is developing, but at different rates than, say, on Earth. So you can see what doing this in lines has done for just those 2 pieces. So again, I got my smaller pen out, and I'm going to do those fabric folds that indicate in this case, that she has young teenager breast characteristics, which would be normal for her age. And she also has fabric that is rippling a little bit, so indicating that the fabric that these uniforms is made of isn't super tight and smooth, but perhaps a little bit more comfortable. And in this case, their clothing is probably replicate clothing that comes out of a replicator aboard the ship. And it's a cadet uniform, which they don't have as well dialed in either. So I'm suggesting that the clothing is not a super great fit, and she doesn't care all that much. She's not that into her appearance in that sense. It's not what she's concerned with in this book, certainly. So she cares about her appearance enough to be clean, tidy, that kind of thing. But it's not her personality to be seriously worried about it. So again, I've gone to this smaller pen, and I'm going to indicate shadow or the overlap of the upper part of the garment over the lower. And the way that I look at creating something like that, this is an improvement. So I'm going to draw in her empty epaulettes. Because she's a cadet, she doesn't have any rank. And I'll draw in this one. And you might notice that I tend to draw a little quickly. It will make things look a little more effortless in your finished work if you can continue without stopping and starting. So on the Space Force uniform of her era, there is a star and a rocket and its path. That's what this little emblem is. And it's generic, as you see. It's not indicating any particular country or anything like that, even though I am an American. And so this is not a huge departure from familiar tropes in film. And I intentionally went that direction for people. I think they're perfectly okay to have these uniforms be very simplistic and interesting, but also I want them to look like uniforms and not like personal clothing. So you're noticing that I'm continuing the bobble around where the clothing will be suggested to have wrinkles or folds. So if you're drawing with a rapidograph like I am, you are within the boundaries of the device or the tool, and this tool tends toward precision of line. So when you're making choices on what you're doing, you're also operating within the constraints of the tool itself. So I did a video on cross-hatching, doing samples. if you are new to any pen, whatever it is you're using, test it out and find out what its normal thing is. I have a brush pen that I showed you in that video, and that pen is far more wild, in a sense, than a Rapidograph is. So if I was looking for a wilder effect, I would be using that pen here instead of the one I'm using. And so those are choices that I'm making based on my own personal preference, which I like hard lines, and my own style of drawing, which you have your own style as well. And as you practice your hand, you're going to discover what that is. So you may not know right away when you start out that you are a particular way, but over time you will absolutely come to an understanding of what works for you and what you like to do. And I clearly like fine tools. As you noticed, I'm using very tiny pens and fairly rigid lines, which are not the freedom of other artists. Some of the other artists do very good free motion tools. And every one of us is different. So you're going to seek out what excites you and makes you happy as an artist, what tools those are. And then you'll practice them into whatever style you really like. And for me, that's pretty uptight. In a sense, this is uptight work, but it is what I like, and I'm okay with it being uptight work, or I wouldn't be doing it, right? So you may like other appearances, the way things look. And again, I'm adding sort of fake shadows, the indication of a change of plane or whatever, and an uprightness to her collar, even though it's fairly loose on her neck. So everything that you're doing is telling a story through your ink work. I'll come back over here and do a little bit. And you're letting your tool do what it does the best. So every tool is different. And over time, you're going to buy different things and try them out. And you learn the differences in how to gain the appearance that you want for whatever work you're doing. So I'm going to continue, and I will finish her and probably show her at some other point as a finished art. But I wanted you to see the difference. And the difference is, let's just peel this. This is how she looks plain, and this is how she is going to look with more finished detail work on her clothing. So I'll do her legs next and get her done. So I hope you enjoyed that and learned a little bit about sort of the tight drawing style that I tend to favor. And I hope you try it out for yourself. Bye.